You mentioned next generation sequencing and flow cytometry. What's your opinion about the techniques?
I think they both have pros and cons actually. So I think the utility and the adoption will pretty much depend on local capability and access, and maybe to some extent about the cost as well, although I don't fully understand whether there is a difference in the cost of these two techniques. But what is clear is whether you use flow or NGS, it's still the 10 to the power minus 6 that is the important cutoff. The advantage to the NGS testing is that you could use stored sample. That means your samples don't need to be fresh.
Okay.
So in terms of doing multi-center trials, the logistics of using the NGS method is clearly a bit easier because you don't have to ship fresh sample all over the place to central labs. And but the disadvantage is that you do need a baseline sample as well as the remission samples for testing, because you need the baseline sample to actually see what the clones are to compare. The advantage of the flow is that you don't need the baseline sample. You just need the remission sample. So you can reduce the sampling that is needed. The turnaround time, I believe, will be a bit faster for the flow, because at the moment the NGS assay need to be sent to a central lab, with the turnaround, so logistically it may be a bit more challenging in that perspective. The great disadvantage of flow is that it needs fresh samples. So certainly if you don't have the local capability and you need sand, there's the issue of sampling, first of all, the purity of the sample, and then with the shipment, whether it affects viability and how that affects the readout of assay. So I think they all have pros and cons. It all depends on access and local capability. I think will depend on whether one is chosen over the other in the local site. But both are currently recognized in the IMWG response criteria for MRD testing.